Hi, welcome to Unit 1, Entering Your Focus Zone as part of the productivity module. Today we're going to speak about ways and my personal experience of getting into the zone. Why is it important? I'll give you a journaling challenge that you already see. And I also have some recommended resources that not only help me, but one of them, and then the other one that I'm sharing with you for free. So let's start with why is it important to get into the zone? Well, when we live an intentional life, we naturally have a direction of where we want to go. This includes relationships, this includes the environment that we want to live in, this includes the contribution we want to make to society, and also personal goals of who we want to be or what we want to have. And because it's life, there's a lot of randomness and a lot of distractions, shiny objects, shiny people. And if we're not careful, we diverge very far away from our path, or maybe away from the things that are most important to us in terms of our values and who we want to be, right? And if we don't want that, then it's important that we know how to get into a zone so that we're not distracted. This is especially important talking about work and other activities that require large amounts of concentration. But it could also be something more chill and private, like booking a holiday. Let's say you want to book a holiday to have a silent getaway, but because you see a bunch of reels of the parties in Bali, you're like, might as well, go there, and then you don't end up having the time to self reflect that you intended to have. But you're having a great time. In the end, you're not happy with your decision. So this is why it's important that we're able to, in a larger sense, but also in a smaller sense, focus and concentrate and find our own tools to enter these states. Right. So let's proceed to the journaling challenge. My challenge for you is to recall 3 moments in your life where you were fully concentrated on a task that you were doing. It seems like a simple challenge. It can be, but it can also be a more difficult one if you're looking for out of the ordinary tasks and not, let's say, the school exam you had to pass your A levels, or the penalty that you shot in the local cup final, right? So you can make it easier on yourself or harder. But feel free to pause the video and then proceed when you've journaled these aspects. The reason why I asked you this question or asked you to journal this is to create a sense of awareness of your capabilities, but also your rich box of experiences that you already have, that you can always draw back to when you feel distracted. And you can always seek certain aspects of these experiences, whether it's taking an exam, turning something into an exam, or going to play football to, to artificially create very genuine zone experiences for yourself. Let's get to the story time, because all of this has been quite abstract, and I also want to share a bit of my experiences of getting into the zone. So maybe that can inspire you. For me, well, by nature of the examples I gave, it's always been football for sure that got me into the zone. And that's because of the competitiveness. So any sport where it gets competitive gets me into the zone, because I have high expectations for myself and I find joy in movement. So anything related to that, it's very easy. Then other ways that I get into the zone is cooking. Very, very simple. There are certain dishes that I've made a lot of times and I enjoy making them, whether it's like Nigerian dishes or some of my go-to dishes from student times where the zone just takes over. So I don't need a podcast or anything. I'm just right into the flow because I already know the steps that it takes to complete this activity. Of course, the way I describe it makes a very natural daily experience sound very objective and theoretical, but that's all that it is about in the end. That we have to create this sense of awareness, we have to create like an abstract representation of what is happening. Then we can make some changes to the way we live and tap back in with our gut feeling. So that's why you will find in these modules a lot more abstract frameworks, and also the wording that I use will be according to that. All right, so as for story time, I shared the football, I shared the cooking. What else? What gets me into the zone is solo traveling, because you're in an environment that you don't know. It could be a city that's more dangerous than where you grew up in. So, that kind of fear and alertness will keep you, yeah, a bit tense as well, right? You're like in tension, literally. But it gets the best out of you, and it makes you very, very focused on where do you want to go. Contrary to that, it's actually quite cool that during solo traveling, you might not often have a clear direction. So the zone is not even that narrow, it's not a tunnel, but you're just very much in the moment, and that's another aspect of being in the zone. So even when you think back to the journaling challenge, right, feel free to write down even more examples, even if it doesn't have to do anything with like a job activity. It can be anything. Now let's wrap this up and go to the recommended resource. So first, I have a free PDF for you, which is called 17 Ways to Get into the Zone. Those are all ways that I have experienced, used, practiced, whichever you want to call it. And I'm sharing them with you. You just need to go to my website, and then you can download it for free. And another book that I wanted to share is the Tao Te Ching, the Stephen Mitchell translation. It's basically a Chinese philosophy, very, very old, beautifully written, very poetic as well. And it's also called the Book of the Way, because it speaks about letting things flow. And one of my favorite excerpts of that book, or let's say poems, is one that speaks about how the dancer becomes the dance, the artist becomes the art, because they're so immersed in their activity. That's also what Stephen Mitchell opens the translation up with, or introduces it with. They're so immersed in the activity that you cannot separate the person from what they're doing. And when we saw Ronaldinho play football, or when we see Serena Williams play tennis, like that's what we see. We're like, how did they do that? And that's what people will ask you when you're on stage, or after you've written an article or whatnot, and you will not be able to explain it. Or when you're on the football field pulling off a skill, you don't even know how you did it, right? I'm sure many of you have experienced moments in one environment or the other where that happened, where you're like, well, that was something worked through me. And that's the zone that we want to get to, a heightened state of concentration to be able to live our life more intentional. This is it for Unit 1, Enter Your Focus Zone, part of the productivity module. Get the free resources, and I'll see you in the next one.